Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Yay.
Doing all right?
I'm good, man. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last episode, we talked about how I was going to see some shows, some concerts.
Yeah.
And I got to go do some of that. I got to go see 21 Pilots, and I got to go see
all 21 of them. They were all there.
Yeah, they were all there. And who else did I see? I saw somebody else.
Jack White, I believe.
I saw Jack White of the White Stripes fame, and I came to a startling revelation, Kyle.
What's that?
I'm old.
You're old.
Yeah.
This is a revelation, Jay?
Well, I mean, I get it. I've had gray hair since I was 20. You know, it's kind of a thing. People always kind of did the whole, how old are you kind of thing. But like, I physically felt it in my bones this time.
Yeah.
Like I went to Jack White, my buddy John Carroll. We're down there. We're like maybe 15 rows away, 10 rows away from the front. And it is happening. Jack White is killing it.
Yeah.
John disappears. I don't know where John goes. He comes back and he's got some 33 decibel earplugs he's handing out to us. We are putting in earplugs at the rock concert. And I was so thankful that he found those earplugs.
That is definitely a sign of being aged, of not being of a young person variety anymore. I remember my first major concert. I saw some smaller ones, but the biggest one I saw, actually I was much older than a lot of folks. When I saw U2 for the first time, Rage Against the Machine opened for them. And and they have one volume level, and it was loud. And I remember feeling just the rumble of the bass and the drums, because I didn't say this part. We were on the second row of that show.
Where was it?
The second row, Memphis. It was at the Liberty Bowl Stadium in Memphis. One of the absolute highlights of my life. But yeah, we were in Liberty Bowl Stadium, second row, and the Rage Against the Machine comes out, and I could feel every bit of that vibrating, every organ in my body.
Yeah.
So yeah, I imagine if I were to take that concert in today, I would have a much different experience, much more like yours. I would have needed ear protection.
I mean, I was pretending like I was cool. Like I was like, why'd you give me these? But on the inside, I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen, I get it. I can't go to any type of event at an arena, whether it's a concert or wrestling or sports or anything, apart from I need an aisle seat. I've got to be in the aisle. I hate being on the interior, crammed in there. I'm a tall guy as it is, and I'm, got some weight on me, and so I'm a healthy man. And so I hate being crammed in the middle. So I always got to pay a few extra bucks to sit on the aisle. And it is, yeah. So I'm with you, man.
The other thing that hit me for 21 Pilots was at one point in the show, I'd been standing up a long time and everything hurt. I mean, it hurt from I didn't know your individual toes could ache. Like it was starting there. It landed in the hips. My lower back was starting to give out. And at one point the guy is like, he saw me, he's like the lead singer, like the first pilot, he saw me and he was like, okay, everybody, this song, dads, you can have a seat. And so I was so relieved. Like I sat down for the song and he pulled out his little ukulele and did a number. But do you remember a time where you didn't hurt?
Man, gosh, that's a good question.
That alone means we old.
Yeah. But it's funny because when you're teenage, the hurt you have there, it's because you're growing. It's like, oh, my joints hurt because they're all growing.
Yeah, Osgood Slaughter. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get a little bit older, you get to college. Yeah. Maybe it's college. The last time you don't really just always hurt, You
feel awesome.
You feel great.
Yeah. And you completely take it for granted.
Oh, yeah. Youth is wasted on the young, right? Isn't that what they say?
I get out of my car and I just have to stand there for a second so that everything will just unclench and relax.
Realign.
The pain will go away. I'm just standing there like, okay, here we go. Aging is going to be something that we kind of hit on today a little bit. It's going to be something we talk about. It's going to be part of the show, if you will. Yeah. But before we get right into all that, we're going to be, a little tease of if our book is set in 1999 and Elvis is leading it, then that makes him
I believe it was 62, I think, was our math.
Something like that.
Yeah, 62, 63, something like that.
62, maybe 64.
Yeah.
Somebody can fact check us on that. But before we get to that, we've got lots more to talk about, Kyle.
A whole lot more. Yeah.
Kyle.
Yo.
What have you been taking in?
Man, Jay, I've got a great story. So typically when we get to this segment on our show, I'm talking about something that is old that I've watched with, my friends or my sons or, whatever. Well, I watched something new old. Okay. um, my wife had been wanting since the summer to go see the movie Twisters, the sequel to the 1996, Twister, the original.
Yeah.
And so, she was like, don't go see it without me. Cause, oftentimes I'll go to a movie with you or with, another friend, Brandon Palmore, somebody, we'll go see like a Marvel movie or something like that. That she has no interest in. Well, she wanted to see this one. She's like, don't go see it without me. So I waited. I had opportunity, but I waited. And last week was fall break for us, and we were supposed to go to Universal. The hurricane came through. We changed our plans. So we're going to have a staycation.
So let me just pause you. What you're telling me is that a natural disaster caused you not to go on vacation. And in response to that, you went to a film about
natural disasters. I had to put that together. That's good. Yeah. That's really good.
Keep going.
That's rich.
Proceed.
So on Wednesday morning, she says, hey, let's see if Twisters is still showing. And I was like, there's no way. That thing came out in July. It's October. Yeah. So I looked it up. Sure enough, there was one show in Nashville. I think there was one in Lebanon, Tennessee, which was about 30 miles away. But there's one show in Nashville at the lovely, glorious, beautiful Opry Mills Regal.
Oh, yeah.
72.
We've seen some good ones there.
However many screens they have there.
We've seen some good ones there.
We have, man. You and I have seen a bunch of good movies at that theater. So
I think I saw Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter at that theater as well.
With David Watson, though. Not
of course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it was showing at 12:15. And I thought to myself, let's just see if this is showing tomorrow, just in case something happens. We can't do it today. Yeah. Not showing tomorrow. And, because Thursday is when the new movies come in. And so all the old ones go away. And so I realized, Jay, this is the last showing in the city of Nashville of this film. It's not showing any other theater inside of Nashville. So I was like, this is it. We are seeing it the last possible moment. Well, I did one better. On Sunday, Jay, I'm weird. Okay. Flying my freak flag here. I am what I am. We have established this well. Yeah. On Sunday, I always check the website, Box Office Mojo.
Yeah.
You got a question? I saw you raise your hand.
No, today I was talking to somebody and I was like, Kyle is a fuddy dud, but he's my fuddy dud.
Right. This isn't necessarily Box Office Mojo. It's not a fuddy dud thing. It's just a curiosity.
I mean, like we've all got our things.
Oh yeah.
This is one of your things.
It's one of my things. So I always check Box Office Mojo on Sunday to see how the movies are doing. Right. Because I care about the movie industry and I want it to survive, And I went and I looked, and you can check every day how much money a movie makes every single day, going back to honestly, the 70s. It's nuts. Their database is crazy. So I checked on Wednesday and I saw that, Twisters made $7,000.
$40.
It would have been $40 less had we not gone, but it made $7,000 nationwide, showing in 503 screens.
Okay.
On Thursday, 0 screens. Not only did we see the last showing in Nashville, I will go ahead and say we saw the last showing in America.
Possibly. After the film was over, somebody walked up and pulled the light cord and the light went out, the light went off, and that was done on Twisters.
That was it. They wrapped up I know they don't use film anymore, but they wrapped up the film. They put it back in a package. They sent it back to Hollywood. We're done with this one.
And that was it. If you don't mind, give us a little recap. I don't know. I don't remember much about 96 except Helen Hunt and Bill Pullman. Yeah. So
Bill Paxton.
I get my bills mixed up.
Yeah, easy to do.
And then this modern take. Give us some highlights. If you can be as spoiler free as possible.
I'll do my best.
The new one, I think it's okay to talk about the 96 one.
Absolutely.
I think that the time has passed, right?
Statutes of limitations have passed.
We'll call that the 6 cents rule.
in 96, the Twister, singular Twister, 96. It was about this team of they're kind of like ragtag mom and pop scientists who are trying to deploy this technology called Dorothy that could help detect early detection for tornadoes to help communities so that they're not surprised by a storm that just rises up, to help save lives. Mm-hmm. And so it's this ragtag group of awesome actors, these Gen X icons, like Jeremy Davies, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Look him up. If you know who Jeremy Davies is, he was the coward in Saving Private Ryan. He was in a
little bit of everything for the longest time, right?
Yeah, he was in Lost for a few episodes, a season or so. Philip Seymour Hoffman in one of my favorite roles. His name is Dusty. And even though it's a throwaway part, he is so good in that movie. But yeah, Bill Paxton's the lead. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt are the leads. She's probably actually the main character. But like Jamie Gertz, who was like in The Lost Boys, was kind of one of the fringe brat packers from the 80s. She's the love interest of Bill Paxton in that movie. Anyways, they're this ragtag group of tornado scientists. They're about the science, trying to save lives. And there's this rival group, this Cary Ewells, I think that's how you say his name. He was the Princess Bride, Wesley in the Princess Bride.
As you wish.
As you wish. He had this other team of like corporate sponsored scientists trying to do the same thing. Basically, it was a race. And there's like 5 tornado events in the movie, and they're all different and they're all exciting. And, by the end, they're able to deploy Dorothy and get all this data on tornadoes. So that's basically the plot of Twister. And
so
it's
two things, Kyle. One, you forgot to mention Alan Ruck.
Alan Ruck is in it. Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's correct.
And I don't know if this is right or not, if this is the spelling, but it would appear as though one of the writers of this movie,
Todd Field,
is none other than Michael Crichton.
Oh, Michael Crichton. Well, Todd Field, who's a famous director now, is one of the actors in the movie, one of like fringe parts.
Okay.
But I think it was Michael Crichton's idea. I think he had the original
he based on the IMDb, which I just looked at right now. It has his name on there as one of the writers. So that's how I got that. It's not. I don't have your abilities.
Right. So that's the original 1996 Twister. That movie means a lot to me. It's not like a high piece of high art cinema, but it came out when I was a senior in high school. It was one of those movies in May of 96 when it came out, I believe. And
who'd you go see it with? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Chuck Morris, I think my buddy John Cameron, Tyler Williams. I believe we saw it in Bartlett where I lived, in our local theater there in Bartlett. Yeah. I usually had to go to their turf. They came to my turf to watch it. So it was, fond memories of Twister. But like the week after, the original Mission Impossible came out. I think that was the summer of Jerry Maguire. I mean, Independence Day came out in 96. So just like some great like summer blockbusters.
Yeah.
From that time. So love the movies of 96. Means a lot. Even though it's not high art, the movie means a lot to me. So this new film, Twisters, singular to plural.
It's got the hot it guy right now, right?
Glenn Powell. Yes, he was from Top Gun Maverick. Perfect movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Stop this podcast right now and go see Top Gun Maverick if you haven't. Glenn Powell is not the lead. The lead, I don't know the actress's name, who's the lead character. You could.
Well, let me
look
go
it up
ahead
there on the IMDb.
I'm going to add an S to the end of it, and it's going to give me a whole different movie, Kyle.
A whole different movie.
It's Daisy Edgar Jones.
Daisy Edgar Jones. Okay.
She was in a big movie recently that you probably didn't see at all, which was
no chance I saw it.
A famous book, and it's killing me right now because I can't think of the name of it.
Is it like the something 6? The
Where the Crawdads Sing?
Oh, Where the Crawdads Sing. Yes,
that was a big one a couple summers ago.
I think you called it Where the Crawdads Sleep.
Yeah, dude, that was a rough one. But.
So same idea. There's 2 groups of people chasing after tornadoes. Now in this one, Daisy Edgar Jones, her team is the more scientific team. But as the story develops, you find out there's some ulterior motive. I'll leave all that to for you to find out. But they're like the scientists, like, we're here for the science. And then there's this other group, Glenn Powell's group, who are like the storm chasers. They're YouTubers. They feel like the more mom and pop ragtag because their equipment's janky. They're in Winnebagos and pickup trucks and stuff, and not like, fancy science equipment. So it looked like, the roles are going to be reversed from the original Twisters, that you're going to pull for the scientists and not for the, for the fun loving crew. But as the story develops, you see kind of how that happens and how, the story gets all mixed up. In this one, they're not trying to deploy detection equipment or science. They're trying to figure out a way to stop tornadoes, like stop them. That is sort of the scientific ambition in this one. And so they have a they say 2 or 3 times at the beginning of the movie to make a big joke of it. They have this substance that they want to do the same thing as in the original Twister. They want to put it in the way of a tornado, and then tornado sucks it up, and the tornado sucks up this substance and it stops the tornado. And they say it's the same stuff that they put in diapers, some type of liquid absorbent material. I don't really know. That was the whole thing.
I was going to guess they made little drones, like 1 million little drones, and they went there and they turned the opposite direction. Like if it's a swimming pool and you're all going one way, go the other way. I'd have done that. It'd have been 1 million different little drones would have reversed it. It's like when you get dizzy and you go one way, and you're like, the way to fix it is to go the other way. That's how we should have done it.
Or like Superman, 1978, when Lois Lane died, he flew around the world backwards and he made the world spin backwards.
Yeah.
See that one if you hadn't seen that one. So yeah, it's got a similar feel in that there's 4 or 5 different tornado experiences, that the characters have to endure. And it's like I think of the way I described it to you is it's like The Walking Dead, where every episode you have to find a new way to kill a zombie. So it's like every time they experience a tornado, they have to find a new way to experience it, a new it hits them in a different way, and they experience it in a fresh way. So it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's as good as the original, but some of that is just my bias. I think you always love the movies of your youth better than, the ones of your old age, as we have so firmly established.
No, yeah, that's fair. Age will get you on that. It's like you don't like anything anymore. You like a good bed, like a good, comfortable bed. A pillow that doesn't make your neck hurt. So I'm just curious. I'm going to make this up on the spot. Maybe this is something we'll do in the future. Your lightning bolt back there gave me inspiration. On a scale of 1 to 5 lightning bolts, what do you give Twisters?
Twisters, I'd give it like a 3.25, like a 3 1/4.
Okay, 3 1/4 lightning bolts.
Yeah.
Okay,
because it's a lot of fun. I mean, don't go in expecting like high art. The filmmaker Isaac Lee Chung, his last movie was Minari, which was like a pretty artful, thoughtful, meditative film. I really enjoyed that movie. This is not that at all. This is fun, rollicking.
Are there touches of thoughtfulness as far as like the way the movie was put together?
A little bit. There's
his hand in it.
There's some thought and concern toward trauma and recovery from awful experiences, and how we treat one another and how we walk with and care for one another for people who have experienced hard things. There's a little bit of that. But mostly it's just about tornadoes blowing stuff up and, people, surviving them and, it's just a rollick. It's a lot of fun. And sad to say, you can't go see it in a theater anymore because I saw the last one.
Well, it's great. It just means that you can watch it at home. I'm pretty sure that I could watch it right now in my house for $19 or something like that if I so chose.
You can, but you can't see it on a 40-foot screen. You can see it on a 70-inch screen, but you can't see it on a humongous silver screen, which does add a lot.
It just depends on how close you get to the TV screen. Kyle.
Sure, yeah.
It's all about perspective.
And in our old age, we do have to get up close to things to see them,
and put on the what do you call the closed caption? Put on the words so we can understand.
Exactly. Guilty.
Now, just a couple things we probably should have addressed at the beginning of this podcast.
Yeah.
My parents have been watching the podcast. They're one of the 20 people right now that I think are a part of it. So we can say hi
Mr. and Miss Watson. Love you guys.
They, upon our suggestion, and this isn't the first time this has happened, they took in Bad Monkey and they watched all 10 episodes of Bad Monkey. And Bad Monkey has some adult content in it. Let's just say it is not afraid to sound like an Eddie Murphy special from the a lot of cursing.
Okay.
And so, Pops and KK were talking about it. My mom said, I really liked it, but they just cuss so much. It's taken a couple of days. Those words are still in my mind. And I said, well, Mom, it's okay if you want to say some of those words real quick. And she just thought that was the funniest thing ever. This is not a content police type podcast. Like when we talk about these things, you need to use your good judgment and decide what's best for you. And if you have had a tornado trauma of some sorts, we would recommend you not watching Twisters.
Probably not. But
or
you probably
Twister.
Came to that equation. You probably came to that understanding on your own prior
Correct.
to
Correct.
Yes,
and on your own is what we're talking about right now. It's
That's
up to you. If you go listen to something we talk about, just know that, we're not the content police. There are websites for that. You can go to Box Office Mojo to find out how much they're selling, and you can go find out how many people die in films as well. And so you can go find those websites and take care of that on your own.
I'll tell you a good one, just in case you're curious. Kids in Mind is one that I've looked at before to find out the content of the movie. If I should take my kids to it, if they should see it. They helped me know that Deadpool and Wolverine was not for my teenage boys.
Not for them.
Nope.
Not for them. Not for a lot of people. I feel like that movie, again, is much like Twister in the way they advertise it. It's like, or Twisters, in the way they advertise it, you get pretty quickly, whether or not that's something that's for you.
Probably not for me.
Yeah. All right. So I think are you good on Twisters? You got anything more to say?
I'm good. Yeah. No, I hope I would recommend it. I hope if you are cool with that type of experience in film, and it's a lot of fun. It's not high art, but it's a lot of fun.
All right, Kyle.
Jay, what are you taking in? What are you watching, man?
I have been excited about this film since I first heard about it, and it has a little bit to do with kind of my upbringing and things I cared about. At a very young age, what I wanted to do with my life is I wanted to have my own talk show. I wanted to be a talk show host. I wanted to be a mixture between Johnny Carson and Arsenio Hall. That's what I wanted to be. And I loved everything about it. But my super secret desire in life, my super secret thing I wanted to do is I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. Dana Carvey is the king in my world. I remember watching, when I got a VHS tape of Wayne's World, I probably watched it 17 times. Like I could probably quote, that film to you. I watched Opportunity Knocks both in the theater and at home. I had it on VHS. I could do the Born to Be Wild thing that he does there. I could watch that. Even to this day, I'm a big Dana Carvey fan. And so Saturday Night Live was a big deal in my life. I studied it. I watched it. I watched the old stuff. And Jason Reitman made a film called Saturday Night. And it is about the first night that Saturday Night Live made it to the air. So it follows, it's kind of a behind the scenes, I don't know, biopic maybe?
Yeah.
Like it's one
like
night.
A real-time
like
biopic.
a real-time hour and a half biopic of what it was like. And of course there's some dramatization, but quite a bit of dramatization, actually. Some things that are around the edges to make it a little bit more interesting. There's a Milton Berle moment that's something. And you've got, other little things in there that they've kind of done that while they may be true stories, they didn't exactly happen that night or that way. The cast is fantastic. The film is excellent, is really, really cool. And it's kind of interesting to think about what SNL was then versus what it is today and now. Yeah. But for a TV show, for a series to stay relevant for 50 years, some people may argue its relevance, but in general, it's kind of got the Zeitgeist of culture for 50 years is phenomenal. It's unheard of. There is nothing else like it. And in 1974, I guess, 1974, that's got to be.
I think it's 5. I think it's 75.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Like February 75. So that's 50 years, 1975. During that time, television was pretty, as far as like late night talk shows, as far as variety shows, as far as anything like that, it was very much still in Milton Berle's world. It was, Sonny and Cher. It was those kind of things.
Yeah.
And Johnny Carson was great, but it was formulaic. It wasn't that different than Jack Parr or anybody that came before him. And this was a very different show. They'd had variety shows before, but I don't think anybody quite like Lorne Michaels, who was really kind of subversive in the way he thought about comedy. It was a bunch of people from National Lampoons. It was people from Groundlings. It was people from all these different areas that now these are famous things, but back then they were underground.
Yeah.
And for the crew that he put together to show up on television and do what they did was kind of phenomenal. Like it changed the pop culture world for sure. Anybody that touched that show in the early 70s, like they're still making us laugh today in some ways, those that are still among us.
Yeah.
But Jason Reitman did a bunch of amazing stuff. His father, Ivan Reitman, was a contemporary with Lorne Michaels and friends with all of those people that were in that, made movies with those folks. And so he had a lot of backstage access to all of these people. And so he got a chance to talk to them, get interviews. In fact, Billy Crystal was slated to be on the first episode. he had 4 minutes and it was cut, and he never made the first season. Later, he's a cast member.
Yeah.
But when he goes and he interviews Billy Crystal, this is not in the movie, but this is a little tidbit for you. He finds out that Billy Crystal still has the original script.
Oh,
and
wow.
so in the movie, the scripts that they are holding are photocopies of the original script, which I think is pretty awesome.
Cool.
Little tidbits in the movie that you learn that are just really cool, but like you get to see kind of how Chevy Chase was, or how Dan Aykroyd was, or how, what John Belushi was like, which, I think is kind of interesting to think about because it was 50 years ago. A lot of these people like John Belushi, they don't really know who he is anymore. Like, he's not as relevant to anybody younger than us, for that matter.
Yeah.
Anybody younger than us, they barely know who Chris Farley is. And so,
yeah. Well, even for us, I mean, we didn't really experience John Belushi. Like, he died in the early 80s, so like
84, I think.
We remember the, sort of the legend of John Belushi. We probably all saw Animal House. We saw, like some of the Samurai, some of his early skits.
Yeah.
The one I remember most was Little Chocolate Donuts, the Breakfast of Champions. It's like it was one of the early commercials.
Yeah,
and it was him training.
The Wheaties knockoff.
Yeah, it was him training for the Olympics. He's got a cigarette in one hand and a little chocolate donut. And he's like, "These have been on my training table since I was a little kid." It shows him like running a lap, and he's faster than everybody. So he was probably one of those dudes like Brian Denton who is freakishly athletic, even though he's a big guy.
Yeah,
but so we didn't even really experience Belushi in his real heyday.
The breakout performance for this film is going to be Rachel Sennett. I think that's her name. I'm going to look it up real quick because I don't.
Who did she play? Was she Jane
Curtin? No, she played Rosie Schuster.
Oh, Lorne Michaels' wife, right?
We'll say his wife, because I feel like they were in 1980. They were legally married, but not particularly. It's an interesting part of that, like how they kind of deal with that, because they talk about it. But yeah, Rachel Sennett, that's her name. She was captivating. She was kind of the glue for that first season. And I think even after they divorced, she still wrote for like 8 years on that show. And so a lot of the famous sketches that came out of the beginning, she had her hands on. A lot of the Gilda Radner sketches, Rosanna Dana, those kind of things, she did that. And that character is really fascinating to see how she kind of has the ability to she's like a horse whisperer for weird comics. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, I loved it. I'd go see it again. If you're a film person, Reitman does a lot of really cool tricks with a camera where he doesn't break, like the scene just kind of continues and goes through the chaos. And I think for a while to come, people are going to be picking apart those scenes, trying to understand like how he did it and how they could do it, and just the continuous kind of chaos that they were in. You've got a lot of J.K. Simmons is in it. William Dafoe is in it. I'm trying to think who else just kind of shows up that is an interesting. Oh, Brad Garrett is in it. Everyone Loves Raymond. He's got a part in it.
You want to know a fun fact about Brad Garrett?
Please do. Yeah, I've been waiting all night.
He voiced Hulk Hogan in the Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling cartoon show from 1985.
Okay.
He was the voice of Hulk Hogan. How about that?
I watched that cartoon.
I did too. I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan was 1985. Hulk Hogan was inescapable.
He was ubiquitous. He was everywhere.
And
Hulkamania was running wild, brother.
He hosted SNL
with Mr. T the night before WrestleMania. That's right. Brings it all back together.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast just this morning while I was eating lunch and yes, I eat lunch in the morning, Jay. I'm old. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
I was listening to this podcast about this movie Saturday night, and they recommended it. They said it was a lot of fun. They said it was, like you talked about, one of the pretty cool piece of filmmaking.
Sorry,
but that it wasn't. What's that?
I hit the transition button and made a noise. It was too early. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they just said that it probably doesn't, it plays a little fast and loose with some of the facts. So if that's like your thing, like you're a trivia buff about, the first season of Saturday Night Live, you may be frustrated with how they handle some of the factual elements, but they enjoyed the movie. They recommended the movie. So I'd like to see it. I think it'd be fun.
So there's a famous kind of skirmish between Chevy Chase and Bill Murray in season 2. Chevy Chase has already left the show. and he comes back to guest host, and him and Bill Murray get into a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Famous kind of legend, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because this is the first night of SNL, they don't have Bill Murray. And so they kind of use that to explain a little bit of what Chevy is like through a spat with John Belushi. And so the spirit of the truth is in most of their choices. But sometimes they do things so that it will be a little bit better for the movie and than actual fact.
To hype up the drama a little bit. I get
a little bit. Just turn it up a little bit.
Sure. I get that. Yeah. It sounds like fun. It sounds like an interesting show. I think it's something I would enjoy. I do typically like that. Saturday Night Live has meant a lot to me over my time. You know, my experience with Saturday Night Live.
If Dana Carvey is my person, who's your person?
Gosh. Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I really enjoyed like the class of 92, like the whole group. You're talking Sandler, Farley. I mean, some of them came on the show earlier.
Chris Rock.
Spade, Rock.
Rob Schneider,
making copies, you know, like Kevin Nealon was still there. Phil Hartman was still there.
Dana Carvey and Mike Myers were still there.
Mike Myers was still there. I think Dana Carvey had just left, or he was about to leave. No, he was there in 92 because that was the election.
He was
there
did all
the presidents.
Can I finish?
What was his George Bush? 1,000 points of light. Not gonna do it. Not got that. But I remember it was a primetime special, and somehow they did a split screen technology, and they had him as Ross Perot and H.W. Bush on the stage with Phil Hartman as Bill Clinton in the middle. And it was fantastic. And he was just arguing with himself. I don't know how they did the timing of that, but like George W. Bush and Ross Perot arguing, and the same guy playing both characters.
Don't quote me on this, but I believe that they pre-recorded one of them, and then the stand-in for the live big shots was David Spade as Dana, as one of the people.
Yeah. It was a fantastic, but that's my favorite time to watch Saturday Night Live, because, you would watch it on Saturday night and then you'd go to church the next morning, and all the buddies, we would sit around and, did you see what Farley did? Or did, whatever it was, he fell through a table as Matt Foley or whatever, and it always became so much funnier the next day when you talked about it and you relived all the jokes and everything. Because in that day, if you didn't see it live, if you weren't there for it live, you were probably never going to get to see it again, unless you just happened to turn on the TV in the summertime and they were showing that particular episode. So it was like, I got to be there when it comes on. Otherwise, I'm not going to have anything to talk about tomorrow in Sunday school.
Or you record over the Super Bowl and put it on your VHS tape, where you get all of the commercials and everything, and you got to sit there and fast forward and rewind.
And which, at that point it was frustrating, but now I would love to watch those commercials, man. It was like it's like a time capsule to go back and see those old things. Yeah. It's fun.
Everybody probably spoken to in all those commercials.
Yeah, every one of them.
But yeah, it was very cool to see kind of where it is, and then think about where SNL now is today and what it's like. And it seems as though, I think we were talking about this a couple of days ago, one of our car rides, but we were talking about how the idea of humor can change, like how, I don't remember like some of the things that happen right now, like on the show, like the humor is not for us. It's for our kids and the way they see things in these 5 and 10 second sound bites these days now. Right. Like it's a little bit different. But in our time, it was kind of our humor. It was our thing. And I would argue that the reason for that is because SNL tends to figure out whatever is culturally relevant for the now, and that's what their humor is for. And so it's like a time capsule into those particular eras is what you've got. And for the first season of SNL, it was very anti-establishment, anti-man, anti what has been. Not that different in a way from the Gen X kind of worldview and where that was at that time. But fascinating and worth watching. And I would highly recommend it.
Cool.
All right. You ready for the joint project, what we're talking about together today?
Let's do it.
All right. Kyle, tell me a little bit about what we're talking about today while I'm setting up this beautiful joint project title there.
Yeah, that's a new graphic.
Probably won't make it. I'll come up with something better.
All right. We can change that later. We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah. We'll edit that out.
So, so we have both read and watched within the last several months the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy of books. I think there are 4 movies, but there's 3 books.
Did you recently watch this?
I watched it just last week on our staycation. It was like, again, it's like, what are we going to do? We're supposed to be in, in Universal, but there's a tornado or hurricane blowing through. What are we going to do? So we watched movies. We did all kinds of stuff. And this was one of the movies we watched. I would say, before we get into our conversation, this film, to me, again, sort of maybe a warning, was a lot more graphic than the original Hunger Games. Like, I feel like it was a little bit more like it kind of, there's a few moments that really kind of made me shudder a little bit more than the original did. I think they wanted to lean into the horrific nature more of children starving, dying children killing one another in an arena. I think they really wanted to lean into that, how awful that is, just the thought of that. Whereas they wanted to sanitize it a little more in the older trilogy, or the original trilogy, if you will. So just a little forewarning. If maybe not watch it with your younger kids, maybe not, but your older kids, your teens could probably handle it.
Okay. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a prequel.
It's a prequel
to the Hunger Games.
Yep.
Suzanne Collins wrote 3 books. And for us, the Hunger Games in particular are a little bit of an inspiration for the Dead Rock Stars. And it's not in content per se, but if you read the first Hunger Games and you read it, it feels like you're reading a movie. Like it follows as though you're reading a movie. And that was one of the things we wanted to do with our Dead Rock Stars book, is we wanted, we didn't know how to make a movie. So we wrote a book, and we wanted our book to feel like you were reading a movie. It was fun and snappy and fast paced, and the dialogue was there. And it's not that the Hunger Games is particularly fun or snappy, but it does move, and it moves quickly.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting things that she does in that first book, and then the others that kind of grab you. I don't know if I can't remember for sure, Kyle, but are all of those Hunger Games books written in present tense, or just the first one?
I don't remember. I think they are. And I think they're all sort of present tense and from Katniss's perspective.
Yeah.
But I can't fully remember.
That's an interesting literary device. Like, not very many novels do that, where they write in present tense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting take, and was really interesting for this Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I don't know if you're ready to go here, but I'm ready.
Just one more thing, just so we remember. So Hunger Games, the main bad guy in this Hunger Games world is President Snow. And that was played by Donald Sutherland.
Yes.
And he was basically an old guy up in a building, and he had roses, right? I mean, that's really... He was like the scary guy that made the games happen. And you really don't know, like, he seems evil. He personifies evil, but like, you don't know. I mean, we don't know much about him. And so that's where this story takes place, right?
So he is actually the main character, but he's a teenager in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And that is the weirdest thing. When you first start reading that book, if you've read the original trilogy already, you go back and read that book, you're like, the protagonist here is President Snow, but he's 18 years old. But she does some really good things. She does some really fascinating things to make you forget about the evil guy, because the more you come to know him, the more you realize this guy is just dyed in the wool evil. He's a bad dude. But it's sort of like you understand why after you read the book. So it turns out that he's from an old money family, and they are basically impoverished, but they're very prideful, and they can't let the world know that they're broke, so he's got to go to school, and he's in this like elite upper echelon group of people at school competing for a scholarship, basically. And he's starving. Like, he's got no food at home. The only time he can eat is when he's at school, and his uniform is just stitched together by a wing and a prayer.
Not really fooling anybody either, right?
I mean, he thinks he is, I think, but there's definitely some, man, I'm going to do horrible with the names and the characters, but the character played by Peter Dinklage, who is he's like a professor in the story. He knows everything about it. He can see right through his facade and his charade and everything.
I think his name's Tyrion. I think that's right, isn't it?
Tyrion Lannister. Yes. Yes.
Professor Lannister.
Professor Tyrion Lannister. Mean sister, lovable brother, but he's not very nice either.
Slight touch of incest. It's weird, but just go
a little. It's strange though. For my mom and dad who don't know any of this, that's from Game of Thrones. Don't look it up.
Not for you. Not for you, KK.
Not for you. Anyway, so yeah, she does a great job though of magically, miraculously even making you feel sympathy for Coriolanus Snow. I think that's how you say his name. You feel sympathy and empathy even for him,
which is a famous R.R. Martin trick, by the way.
Oh yeah, for sure. The people you hate in book 1, you love by book 5.
Yeah,
it's really fascinating how he can do that.
For this film, it's a reverse trick. It's almost like you love the guy, and then you're like, why do I like? I'm so supposed to hate him. Why do I love him? And then you get to the end, you're like, oh yeah, that's why I hate that guy.
Well, it's really, I never found myself loving him because I could never divorce myself from what he became, who he became. Yeah. But it's like I could understand him. So it's like she gave you empathy. It helped you understand why he is the way he is. And I thought that was pretty deft, thing to do.
And so it's interesting because I'm thinking about this, and it's almost like Snow was tempted with good. Like this film is him being tempted with good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's such an interesting thing to think about, right? Like it's a reversal of that. What are you going to do? So many films, so many stories tell of like, I could go down this path. I could do these bad things. And, it's in like the hero resists. And this is kind of the reverse of that telling, right?
Well, he often has opportunities to do something good for someone else or to do the right thing. And many times, what's cool is many times in the book is he actually does those right things, but because you can see his thoughts, you know that he really doesn't do them for the right reasons.
There it is.
It's always
self-serving.
Self-serving. He I'll spoil this. I won't say the whole thing, but he has to go into the arena at some point. There's all these tributes in the arena and he's got to go in. And it's a pretty powerful moment in the story and the reason why he does and all that. So it's really pretty impressive feat of literature. And, again, it's like Twisters. It's not high art, she's not going to win any awards for it.
It's a good story. It's
a good story though. Yeah.
She's cranking out books and movies.
Yeah.
But we can talk about what's coming out next in the series, but something that I was just thinking about is the reason why the violence is cranked up. The reason why it is what it is because this is one of the 10th one. Is this like the 10th Hunger Games that we're experiencing?
And
so they've only been doing it for that many years. And because of that, it's still kind of rudimentary. And it's they're learning to make it more evil by dragging it out or making it more fun for the viewer at home, which is sick and disgusting, right?
Right.
But
and there's enough humanity left in people in the Capitol to be turned off by it. Whereas by the time you get to Katniss Everdeen and in the future, it's like these children who are pulled from the districts are not people anymore. They're characters in a show, and you pull for your favorite one, the one you like the best. It's just like when we watch Survivor or Amazing Race or whatever, you pull for the team you like, you pull for the one you like. And when someone gets eliminated, too bad. I like them. Well, maybe next year, like, it's become that type of thing, with the style and the storytelling and the backstories and all those things that they added. At this point, it's just starving kids. Most of them already disease ridden. Most of them, in tattered clothing. I
don't remember the disease part. That's a interesting.
There's that one girl who had tuberculosis. Like she's coughing the whole time. Yeah. And one kid has only one arm, like his arm had been cut off. It looked like in an accident because it was kind of gnarled. It wasn't like, like he was born that way or whatever. It was it looked like it happened violently.
Yeah.
So and their clothing is all tattered and everything. Like there's no glamour to this at all. And they're in an actual like Roman gladiator arena versus this the fancy technology that they found in the future where they're in this digitally enhanced, space or whatever, where this, the changing environment, the constant, there's water and there's forest and there's, lightning and all these other things that they can manipulate and create. It's really interesting. Just everything she does in the story. We haven't even talked about the songbird, the main character.
Yeah.
Other than
I don't know that we necessarily have to. It's interesting, I don't know that we have to talk that much more about it because I mean, really, she's the temptation. So like, you don't want to give too much of that away, but I mean, like, there's just a really interesting kind of way to look at that universe from a different perspective and kind of see kind of historically what it's like and why the Hunger Games and where they are and what they do, how it gets to that point, and how civilization kind of teeters and the Civil War and all those things. And these things that are happening on the early part of it help you understand and build up to the angst and the hatred that is there for the government, for this
the capital.
What do they call it? They call it
the capital.
No, not the capital. I mean, like what they're doing, the game, like
the reaping,
like the whole reaping and all the things. Like it really does a good job with all those kind of pieces, and it leaves a little bit of a cliffhanger, Kyle. Like there's a part of the story where we don't know really if
what happened,
everybody made it or not. What happened?
We don't know what happens at the end. Yeah,
I kind of like that. Yeah,
I do too. My children were telling me about a theory, or that, my kids love these YouTube videos about like theories. There's this one that, all the Pixar movies are a united narrative and they're all connected in some way. And, a character from Monsters, Inc. is actually the witch in Brave, and, all these other things. And, and so they were watching a theory video about, someone from the Songbird of Ballad of Songbirds Snakes is the ancestor of someone who's in the in the later Hunger Games. And you do learn the song Coming to the Tree or whatever that they sing in the Mockingjay film or the Mockingjay book. She sings that song. The Songbird sings that song in the movie. So it's really kind of cool. It's like, like she wrote that song, so it's pretty cool how that she ties in that mythology in her universe. So Suzanne Collins, good job. Good on you.
Yeah, well done. And we got another book coming out next year, and then another film, and it's the story of Hey Mitch, right?
Hey Mitch, which is Woody Harrelson's character.
Woody Harrelson, the potential stepbrother to Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you've heard that rumor.
All right.
Yeah, not kidding. That's a real rumor. They are possibly brothers, which is wild. Anyway,
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah. I love the SNL skit where Jim Carrey, does that Buick commercial with Matthew McConaughey, and he's like taking his fingers, like, it's like I'm rolling up a booger with my fingers.
That guy's out there.
Yeah, no, he is. So let's talk a little bit about Dead Rock Stars, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it. Yes, the reason why everyone's here, right? Well, they're wait 45 minutes into this thing to hear us talk about the story.
We've sold more books than we have subscribers, so that's good.
True. Yeah,
that's a win.
Good. Yeah.
But, one of the things that we do in our story is our book, The Dead Rock Stars, is a historical fiction retelling of an event that happens in 1999. And our secret band of heroes are the actual rock stars that passed away too early in life, in real life. In the fiction story, they fake their deaths. They become secret agents to save the world. Yeah. And we have a mythology and we have a whole thing around it. But that's not the important part. One of the things that we had to tackle when we came up with this idea is, if our story is set in 1999, who is in the DRS and who is able to do what they're able to do? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember the meme that came out of showing this quarterback from the 70s and Tom Brady, and they were both age 30. Yeah, George Blanda and Tom Brady. And George Blanda looks like he's a grandfather, and Tom Brady looks like, he's about to go on Survivor and take his shirt off in front of everybody. Right. And they're the same age. They're both 37. It
was 43, I think it was.
Oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. But, one guy looks like he smoked a pack, 2 packs a day for 40 years. And the other one, that sleeps in a barometric chamber and, drinks the blood of, baby goats or something in order to look the way he does. Yeah.
Unicorn blood.
Something weird.
So, we need to think about, like, if these rock stars, some of them who died, in the 60s, 70s, if they make it to the 90s in our fictional universe, what are they like? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we had to consider, put our minds around, and what could they possibly do, and how old would they be? So, that brings us back around to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley himself.
And at this point, like in our story, he would be in his 60s, yet he's leading the team and he's got fight scenes and he's doing all these things. And we had some comical kind of conversations about this early on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some rock stars that are still rocking today that are edging into their, close to 80, some of them, right?
Yeah. The Rolling Stones, I think, are all pushing 80. Yes.
Like Mick Jagger's still, doing his thing. And you're just, you're like, how is that even possible? Like, 80. Harrison Ford, we talked about him quite a bit.
Yeah. Indiana Jones, 80 years old. Yep. How do they do it? How do they do it? And the thing, though, I think for us was if they could still do it, then so could Elvis Presley, even in his 60s.
Mm-hmm.
If again, you got to suspend your disbelief for a moment. If he faked his death, if he got clean, if he trained, if he, did all the things that he wanted to do, he wanted to be a secret agent. He wanted to be an FBI agent. He wanted to be part of the drug enforcement agency, whatever.
And regular bowel movements. That changes a person.
All that is super important. Yeah. Later in life. That's what he wanted to do. That's it, So if he did take in all of that training and all those things, what could he be like? Because, it seems as if you watch the man on stage in his prime, he could move. Holy cow, he can move.
He can move.
They've said that.
Not just his lip.
Not just the
snarl.
Not
just his hips, but he can move.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They say that, when he'd play with football with the Memphis Mafia, they sort of let him score or whatever. But I've seen some footage of him catching footballs and running around. He could juke a little bit. He had some sweet feet, Jay. He had some sweet feet. Come on. Yeah, there it is. The sweet feet.
Kyle, what year did we play on this flag football team? And this is our jersey from
2003, I think. 2002, 2003.
I was going to say 2002. This shirt is 23 years old.
It's old.
And it's awesome. And it's purple and gold, which is why I have the purple in the background to go with this gold shirt. And
that's right.
I think it looks amazing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. But Elvis, we love Elvis. Like
Absolutely.
It's not just he's not a running gag to us. It's not a joke. It's not the karate suit. He was a pretty fantastic creature. Outrageously generous in his life, deeply spiritual.
And deeply flawed. Let's be honest.
Deeply flawed.
Yeah.
But also, like, he actually did kind of care about people in his weird way.
Yeah.
In no ways are we wiping away any of the awful stuff too, but there were really cool things about him. And with each of these characters in our story, we felt that we had a unique opportunity to tell a story of redemption a little bit in their lives. Elvis died a very lonely, sad life.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other rock stars in our stories, similar kind of things. There was addiction. And so to be able to tell a story where they get it together and they're actually trying to save the world was fun to do. And so we kind of got to redeem that. But I also spent a lot of time reading biographies, trying to understand kind of who he was so we could get the essence of each character. Right now, I'm reading a Janis Joplin biography because I want to get it right for book 2.
Mm-hmm.
Tupac biographies on my list. And if anybody's got any suggestions for a Kurt Cobain biography, I'd like to read that and study, because I would like to be able to get some useful things to help make the story a little richer. And if anything, just some Easter eggs, because, it's fiction. We can make them however we want to make them.
Right.
Have a little bit of their essence in there is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I remember you told me once, from reading about Elvis, is how he loved to lob hand grenades into conversations to just sort of blow things up and to see, just to watch how people react, or to throw people off the scent, or just, and I know we wrote that into the story a few times. One of my favorites is there's a scene where several members of the Dead Rock Stars are having a meal together. And there's tension between Cole Denton, our main character, and another one of our characters in the story. And Elvis just calls it out right there. And he's like, so Cole, I feel like you feel like we don't like you too much. How do you feel about that? Just like, boom, just right there in front of everybody. And that's not exactly how it's said, but that was the essence.
It's written much better than that.
Much better than that. Yeah. But that's the essence of the question, the conversation. And, it causes Cole to like bristle and like react in a way that's pretty visceral, and so I think it's just fun to know little details about these people, and not just go with the characterization or the cartoon, the caricature, which they became. And Elvis is the chief among them. Easy to make fun of him, because of the jumpsuits and the weight gain and, all the things that sort of happened to him as he aged, the way he got used up by Colonel Tom and a lot of the other people in his life. And so it's easy to sort of just, poke fun at him. And that's not what we're trying to do at all. We have a great, like you said, a great affection and affinity for Elvis. I grew up in Memphis. My middle school and high school years I spent in the Memphis area. And honestly, I haven't talked a lot about this, but the transition for me from where I grew up, my early years, New Orleans to Memphis, was really hard on me. And one of the things that helped me through was the music of Elvis. I can't tell you why, but it sort of like connected me to that city, like somebody that I knew and loved. And it made me feel like this guy's a part of my new home. And that's okay. That makes it okay, And so when I would hear, even in the 90s, man, Suspicious Minds still had radio play in the 90s in Memphis. And when Suspicious Minds would come, I'm caught in a trap, I can't walk out because I love you too much, baby. I had to sing. I hadn't sung yet, so it was time. When that song would come on, man, my heart would just beat faster, and I'd get excited. I'd come to life, So Elvis meant a lot to me, and I know he's meant a lot to you as well. You've told many stories.
Would you say Suspicious Minds is your favorite?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there are several others that rank pretty high up there. The one that has really, honestly, since I saw the Elvis movie that came out a couple of years ago, the Baz Luhrmann, the one he sings at the end of the '68 comeback special, "If I Can Dream." Man, that's become one of my favorites. I love that song, and his performance of that song. It's sort of like a I'm back. I still got it kind of performance. So that's become one of my favorites as well. But yeah, I got a lot of favorites. Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto. I don't know. In the Ghetto. That one always. Kentucky Rain is one of my favorites. You ever heard Kentucky? 7 lonely days and a dozen times ago, I reached out one night and you were gone. That's so good. Listen to it afterwards. It's a great song.
I'll tell 2 good Elvis stories. I loved Elvis. I was born in August of 1977, which is when he passed away. And so he was ubiquitous at that particular time. He was on television everywhere, much like where you were in Memphis when you got there. You can, still today, when you go to Memphis, he's everywhere. You can't help but see Elvis somewhere. And in 1977, by the time I was 3 years old, 80, 81, they were still showing those infomercials about how you can go get the Elvis box set or you can get whatever and all these things I'm singing. And so my aunts, I had three aunts, and I loved Elvis so much. I went around singing Elvis. My favorite song is Burning Love. I used to, as a 3-year-old, sing Hunka Hunka Burning Love. And they thought it was really fun to upset me by telling me that Elvis was dead. And so up to this day, occasionally one of my aunts will walk up to me and say, Elvis is dead, Jay. And so I had to show her and say, like, no, really, he's a secret agent.
Not anymore. He's alive. The Inquirer was right.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite Elvis stories. And then the other one, I don't know that I've ever told. Maybe I haven't told you this, Kyle. Maybe I have. There was a funeral of a family member sometime in the last 5 years, and they played one of Elvis's gospel songs. And it's one of those gospel songs that's really bad, like Man in the Sky or something. I mean, it's just awful.
Yeah.
And one of my cousins, whom I would save with $30,000 and would fight Don Johnson for, started laughing uncontrollably in the funeral. But the way that this person, I won't say he or she, the way that this person did it was they got down like they were in the prayer position and they began shaking like this. My uncle thought it was so funny that he reached over and patted this person on the back like he was consoling this person.
But in actuality, this individual is laughing, not weeping.
Couldn't stop laughing because the Man in the Sky is playing and it's Elvis and it's just like so surreal.
Yeah. Well, speaking of surreal, this is really lends itself to one of my favorite Elvis stories. I was there in 1997, the 20th year anniversary of his death, right? Every year on his death, August 16th, 1977, there is a candlelight vigil at Graceland. And me and my friends from high school would always go. So we went several times. And in 1977, there was like 20 or 25,000 people that were at Graceland that night. And so the way it all kicks off, Jay, is pretty much a worship service to Elvis. And if Moses were there, he would come down with stone tablets and he would throw them at the gates of Graceland.
Yeah.
You know, it ain't right, but it's hilarious, man, to see all these people weeping over Elvis and basically singing his gospel songs to him, not to the Lord, but to him.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so that night, the people in front of us was, they were Elvis impersonators from Germany, and the people behind us were Elvis impersonators from Korea. And so all night long, 1997, people come by with their disposable Kodiaks, you know, their little, you know, one clicks.
Kodak, not Kodiak.
Kodak. Yes, Kodiak.
Kodiak's here.
Kodiak here.
Kodak's here. Kodak's here.
It's been a long time, man. And they're Kodaks, and they would take pictures, and we would gather around the German and the Korean Elvis impersonators as if we were their Memphis Mafia. So there are pictures of me and my high school buddies all over the world on bulletin boards, I'm assuming, all over the world, with a Korean and Elvis, German Elvis impersonators, with a bunch of 17-year-old, 18-year-old guys.
In my heart, I like to think that Nicolas Cage was among those pictures as well. He had just jumped out of an airplane and had landed at Graceland.
That would have been so great. But here's the thing.
What was the name of that movie?
Honeymoon in Vegas.
Honeymoon in Vegas.
Yeah, that was a good one, 92.
Okay.
So you get in this line and you go up and down when you're going to see the candlelight vigil. And what you do is you pass by his grave, and his mother's grave and his father's grave. That's what you do. You wait all night long, go through the line, you get to pass by. By the time we got there, it was wee hours of the morning. You couldn't even see his grave because it was filled with flowers and stuffed animals and mementos and pictures of Elvis and all these things. People would have to like kind of move it away just so you could see Elvis Aaron Presley. It was crazy. So that was a great night. There's a lot of other stories I could tell about that night, but that's where I'll stop for tonight.
And you live in contrast to this, you live in Hendersonville, which is where the famous none other than
Johnny Cash
is buried.
That's correct.
If you go to Johnny Cash's grave, it's a much different kind of deal. You can just like walk up to it. And do you know what people leave there for Johnny?
I mean, I think they leave him beer. They leave him cigarettes.
Beer and cigarettes. It's
all kind of stuff, yeah.
Beer and cigarettes.
Which Johnny,
fantastic.
Yeah, Johnny I probably would not be too pleased with that.
I don't know.
I mean, that was part of who he was, but I don't think that's who he liked, that people knew him as that was part of who he was, you know?
Probably so.
Yeah, his house. Here's a great trivia about Johnny's house. So after Johnny died, I don't know if you know this, he sold it to Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. And someone was there doing some work, kind of refurbishing, and they put some kind of lacquer on the floor. I think it was one of the Gibb brothers, and he had a cigarette, and he fell asleep, and he set the cigarette on the ground, burned the house down. Burned it down. Johnny's house is burned to the ground because of Barry Gibb or one of the Gibb brothers. I don't remember which one. But you can go by in a boat. You can see where it was. You can see the stone and the steps and all these things. It's pretty cool.
Johnny Cash.
Old Johnny.
Well, Kyle, I think we've had a really good run today. I think we've learned some stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's we asked the question, what have we learned?
I've got some stuff on tap if you want me to go, if you need to think about, if you need to figure out what you've learned today. I know some things that I learned.
Well, maybe we can go back and forth.
Yeah, let's do it.
I learned that when a natural disaster ruins your holiday, you go watch a film about a natural disaster.
Yeah. It's, it just makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. I learned that Kathy Watson doesn't think about those words. She doesn't like to think about those words. She don't want those words.
But thanks to Vince Vaughn, they're in there.
They're in there and they're swirling. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get them out. Put new words in there.
My parents made up a curse word when I was little because they didn't curse, but they called each other Farquhars.
That's like Shrek. Isn't that the bad guy on Shrek?
Yeah.
Prince
Lord Farquhar.
Farquaad or something like that?
Lord, yeah. 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 Anything else you learned?
I learned that your family is often irreverent at funerals for Matt.
Very reverent.
Very reverent.
Much
good at masking their irreverence.
Much like President Snow it appears as though we're being reverent.
Yes.
When in fact, we're just giggling at Elvis gospel songs.
Yes. I hear you. Yeah. Oh, mama, like the roses. Oh, we could sing Elvis all night, man.
Yes, we could. And with that, we are, if my music will play, come on. No? No?
How about the music? Where's the music?
I don't know. We'll put it in post.
Give me just humming?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was YouTube. That wasn't Hope Watson.
The intro works. The outro doesn't work. All right. Peace.